5 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know what's a great conversation starter? Ask anybody, how did you learn how to drive? I bet you everybody has a story about how they learned how to drive, right? It's a great idea for a play. Wow. And there is a play. How I Learned to Drive is the name of a play that we're going to hear about, and it sounds like there's a second play as well. And in addition to it being another great production over at the Ocala Civic Theater, it's going to help raise some funds for Kimberly's Center for Child Protection. Mary Britt is here. We love Mary. She's one of the most charming people. How come I don't hear anybody? Let me put these microphones up. There you go. Now, Mary, go ahead now. Try it now.
Good morning.
Where are you? Where are you? Which one are you? This is maybe you. All right, try that one.
Good morning.
There you go. Now I hear you. Mary Britt is here. You're the executive director of the Ocala Civic Theater. And you're just a great friend. Chris Jory, nice to meet you.
Hi, Larry.
You're a good-looking guy. You are the director of How I Learned to Drive. You must be an actor, too, with those looks, right?
I am an actor and a director, yes. I've been directing for Mary since 1989.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Is she directed yet, or do you have some more work to do?
She has not even done a walk-on for me yet. But it could happen in this show. You never know.
And Rusty Belote is in the studio. We've been mispronouncing Rusty's name all morning as we promoted this segment. Rusty is the chairperson for the Kimberly's Center for Child Protection Outreach, and you will be the beneficiary of at least one of these performances of How I Learned to Drive. Good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And thank you for the work you do. Before, when it was called Kimberly's, I'm sorry?
Actually, Rusty is one of our board members for Ocala Civic Theater.
Oh, okay. I had it wrong then.
So she's in charge of the outreach that we've been doing surrounding the play. And Kimberly Center is one of those organizations. But she's been talking to the psychiatrists and social workers at the schools, the state attorney's office, the Ocala Police Department, all these folks in town that work with child abuse.
Okay.
So she's chairing it for the theater.
So obviously you're all doing something really wonderful for an organization that does something wonderful. We wish it was not necessary, what they do over at Kimberly's Cottage, but it is. And so I'm glad there is an organization that can help with those children, right? Well, thank you for coming in here. So tell me about this show, this play. Is it a musical?
No, How I Learned to Drive is actually a searing drama. It's a 1998 Pulitzer Prize-winning drama written by Paula Vogel.
Okay.
And the story is about a woman who, in a memory, is reflecting back on her life, which includes sexual abuse perpetrated by one of her family members.
So this is a serious play.
It's a serious play. And she goes back and experiences different ages of her life. She plays from 11 to her current age, which is about 44. So she's a teenager, she's an adolescent.
Wow, one actress plays all that?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it's written.
And who is she? Can we say her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Rita Peretta.
Okay.
Rita's actually a teacher in the public school system. And so she's also familiar sometimes with, seeing a child that comes in that's maybe withdrawn.
Oh, familiar with the subject matter. So how do you cast for somebody who needs to look young and old in the same play?
Well, it was really about matching the two of them because the family member needed to be a little bit older than she was. So I needed people, I guess in the end for me, Larry, it was about people who showed me that they had enough life experience to be able to tell the story and withstand telling it over and over again because it's a very serious and emotional subject.
That's interesting. I would think that an actor wouldn't need to have any experience in a thing, just learn about it.
Well, it depends on what kind of actor you are. I think that there are the American method way of acting, as it's called now, uses your own emotion to create the character. And I think both Rita and Tom, who are playing our leads, are very emotionally facile people. Rita teaches at-risk high school seniors.
Wow.
So she has a lot of people in her classes that have been affected by the same issue.
And is the character Tom plays, is he the bad guy? Is he the molester?
Well, he is the molester. Rusty, would you like to talk about that a little bit in terms of...
Yeah, I say the interesting thing about this show is the molester, if you want to label him the bad guy, really comes across as a very nice guy. And that's one of the criticisms that's been raised about this show over the years, that he's almost too nice. How can anybody that nice be such an evil person? And that's really part of when you get into looking at child abuse issues. Often the abuser is a very nice person on the surface, and nobody recognizes that dark side to them.
So that's exactly why it shouldn't be criticized, because that does probably help us all understand that you can't trust anybody. I'll bring in my personal story. My sister was abused when she was a little girl by a cousin, and he was a nice guy until we found out what he did, which was too late, way too late. And then he was never nice in my mind. But
One of the things that we really liked about the play and why we were drawn to it is that the characters are all three-dimensional. I mean, it is easy to paint. This is her uncle. It's her aunt's husband. And, a lot of times it's easy to just paint them as an evil character. But what it doesn't tell in the story is how he was able to build a relationship, which happens with these situations. They build the child's confidence. They become the person the child comes to. So they take their time and develop a relationship, and then and then the abuse becomes a secret.
that makes it even more disgusting, doesn't it?
Yeah, we don't want to tell anybody. This is our little secret. And then often what happens, and Kimberly Center was talking with us about this too, is that the child then really starts to believe that it's their fault. They sort of feel like it's not right, but they don't know why, but then it's their fault. And so the play actually shows her situation over, as Chris said, a long period of time. It's told in flashback. She goes back a little bit farther and peels away a layer at a time until you get back to the very first time he abused her, when the excuse is, I'm going to teach her how to drive, or we're going to go for a little drive. So that's where the title comes from, and that's his way to isolate her and have her alone.
Okay. Wow. No, not at all what I thought this was going to be about.
Well,
Okay.
that's why I'm so glad you let us come, because a lot of times, this is very different than what we do, and a lot of people have said, oh, it's a comedy, or I remember the first car I had, or
Yeah, right. The way I opened up the show kind of implied that. Yeah. So when you put this together, you must. Okay, so now I better understand why you want the actors to have something personal to draw from.
Well, I don't think it was essential for them. I think these two people who are playing the parts do for various reasons in their life experience. But I did notice that I had younger people who came into audition, and they were really talented and a little reticent about the material. They spoke honestly to me about being reticent, and they also showed it in what they were doing. And when Tom and Rita came in, there was an assurance that somehow their life experience had already illuminated this subject. They knew what it was about, and it wasn't as intimidating for them.
And what's Tom's last name?
Rush.
And that's why you have this disclaimer: the play may contain the play contains strong adult themes and language, which may not be suitable for all audiences.
That's right.
And when does it start? When does the actual show start?
tomorrow night.
Yes.
Tomorrow night.
Yes.
And the one particular showing is the 20th. That's the one that'll benefit Kimberly's?
Yes. Next Wednesday night, January 20th, the funds that we receive for the ticket sales on that night will be donated to Kimberly Center. And they've made a commitment. I would like Rusty just a second to tell you what she's been working on. Every single performance, we have a panel of professionals that will be available after the show to do a talkback where audience members can stay if they want to and ask questions
All
or
right.
share experiences. And Rusty's been the one that's been heading that up.
So wow. So you're opening this up for, it's almost going to be therapeutic in a way.
In a sense, there will be the opportunity for members of the audience to raise questions and talk a little bit about what they saw on the stage. And I think that's important because of the themes of the show.
All right, that music means we have to take a little break. So we'll do that right now. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Rusty Belote is in the studio, Chris Jory and Mary Britt. They're talking about the Ocala Civic Theater's production of How I Learned to Drive, which next Wednesday's presentation of that show, which starts tomorrow. The proceeds from that will be donated to Kimberly's Center for Child Protection. We'll be right back.
Weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Times of clouds and sun and cool for Wednesday. Highs in the low to mid 60s, partly cloudy and rather chilly winds tonight with a low in the upper 30s and a few inland spots, about 51 along the coast. For Thursday, mostly cloudy, high 66 to 70. Friday, cloudy, breezy, and warmer with some rain at times, even a thunderstorm that'll taper to an afternoon shower, the high 72 to 77. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Cats are curious, and one of the biggest mysteries to a cat is a closed door. That's why they try to scoot inside with us or stick a paw under the door to get our attention. A lot of women like tattoos on their feet and ankles, which can easily be shown off by wearing sandals or going barefoot. But since there's so little fat in those areas, be prepared to really grit your teeth while you're getting inked. Did you know the latest research tells us rude behavior can become contagious?
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Stay informed on everything going on in the villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
Enrich your life at Golden Ocala Golf and Equestrian Club. Here, century-old oak trees surround stunning homes, the finest resort-style amenities, and a stately clubhouse. Our exceptional golf course will host the 2016 Coates Golf Championship presented by R&L Carriers. And here you can savor a luxurious lifestyle that's second to none. Call 352-369-6969 for more information on our available real estate options and to schedule a home tour.
He's back. That's right. Bob Kennedy with Berkshire Hathaway Home Team Realty begins his new series of real estate programs Friday, January 15th. We'll be discussing the latest news in real estate, trends, financing, you name it. This is an interactive program, so of course, your questions and concerns will be answered. Remember, the first program will be Friday, January 15th at 9:30 a.m. right here on The Source, WOCA 96.3 FM and 1370 AM. All right, 12 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We're talking to Mary Britt, Chris Jory, and Rusty Beloit. Beloit, I'm sorry. They are here to talk to us about the play How I Learned to Drive over the Ocala Civic Theater, which if you heard the first half, you know this is about child abuse or sexual abuse specifically. And I'm let in on the fact that my sister went through this. And I just want to tell you something, because during the break, what came out was the fact that many people say, I'm not going to reveal this until Uncle something is dead or somebody's dead. Then I'm going to tell it because otherwise it'll hurt them. This is exactly what my sister went through. And when she revealed that this had happened in her younger days, it made, first of all, she told me, and she told me not to tell our parents.
Wow.
But I chose to tell them. She kind of was angry with me for 2 years. She's now since she's now since passed away, by the way. But I understood that my parents learning about this would explain to them why she made some of the bad choices she made in her life.
Oh.
And I came to the conclusion, now you guys have studied this, I'm only basing it on one person, that maybe it's true for a guy who gets sexually abused too, but a woman, because my sister's a woman, was completely robbed of her self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And that's why she made the choices she made in her life, because this act that happened apparently more than once by a cousin, an older cousin, basically an adult, when she was maybe, 9 or 11, something like that?
Yeah, 9.
I mean, basically was what robbed her of her self-esteem, never made her feel worthy of anything. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it is important to tell, even though in my case I had to deal with my sister being upset with me for 2 years. So, and Rusty, I wanted to ask you, because also during the break it came out that you helped pick this story and you worked with counseling before. So am I on to something with my amateur observation in my sister's case? Is this what your ultimate goal is to help people come out and tell?
Yeah, what you describe is very typical of what happens in these cases. Because it's a family member or it's someone that is known to others in the family, and this comes out in the play a lot, because it often is described to the child as, this is our secret, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And the relationship usually is close enough that the child somehow values that adult's opinion. And so the child then becomes caught in the middle of not being able to tell anyone, not being happy with what's happening. And it does have that effect long term in their life.
Do you know what I think has changed in our society in the past 30, 40 years maybe, is that when you heard about child abuse like 40 years ago, you thought daddy was hitting them.
Yeah,
You didn't
exactly.
you didn't think anything sex. The sex wasn't part. Now when you hear child abuse, that's all you think of is sex. So I'm guessing those are two different, if you're from a counselor's point of view, two different types of abuse. They're both bad, but...
Well, and Larry, one of the things that you mentioned about your sister's choices in the play, she talks about, the character talks about the fact that she has started drinking. I mean, she becomes an alcoholic and makes choices that aren't great because she has such low self-esteem and she doesn't know how to deal with it and doesn't have anybody to tell because it's a family member that everybody likes.
And part of
I'm sorry, Chris was going to say something.
No, good. Part of the brilliance of the play, Larry, is that the playwright illuminates everybody's position. She talks about how in the grandparents' lives that the grandmother married the grandfather at 14 because the age of consent was 14 at the time. She talks about, the lead character talks about, she has a question for her uncle at the end when he's no longer with us, and she says, "Who did it to you?" Which is probably the most important question in the play. That it's a cycle of abuse. You know, whether it's sexual, physical, whether it's neglect, these are cycles in our culture that continue, and they all shatter a child's self-esteem.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, that's a very interesting thought.
And now with your background, Chris, I think Mary said that you're the drama coach for Major Crimes.
Well, no,
TNT,
actually,
or how does
But
that
drama
fit
coach
into
for
this?
Major Crimes.
I know. I feel like we've gone from one major crime to another here, but
Yeah, but it all interlaces, I think.
yes, it does. Technically, I'm a dramaturg, which is somebody who reads scripts and helps break them down for one of the lead characters on the show, Mary McDonnell. So that's
Oh,
what I
okay.
do. Yeah.
Okay. But you need that expertise, even though you're here directing this play. You have to have that insight.
Well, it really, really helps to be able to fully understand what the story is about and the layers of it. And you work so quickly in television. I mean, this year we had 23 episodes, and so you read so many scripts and they come up so quickly that you learn to assess them and break them down in a way that the actor can portray the roles.
Excellent.
Do you market this differently than you would a comedy or a musical?
One of the things that we have done differently is we want to make sure that people that buy a ticket come to see the show know what they're coming to see. And so we have,
that would make
as you
sense.
mentioned, put the disclaimer on it. And when the box office handles a ticket sale, they just want to make sure that people have seen the disclaimer and they understand. And we do that with a lot of our different shows. If it's anything that we think people might be sensitive to, because plays don't rate their movies their shows like movies do, if you know that it's an R-rated or whatever. And it's so hard to tell what somebody will be drawn to or be offended by. So we do our best to try to make sure that all of our press releases and in our newsletter, that it's very clear what the play is about.
Right.
And so one of the reasons that we wanted to do it, and I think Rusty can talk a little bit about play selection, is that we try to make sure that we offer a variety. And we tend to offer, musicals are always the biggest sellers. Comedies are next. Dramas are really pretty low on the totem pole, regardless of what the topic is. And so...
But in this case, a rating wouldn't tell you everything you need to know, first of all. Second of all, I think, and somebody who's worked in counseling like Rusty, I hope you would agree, that when people realize they're not alone, like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one who this happened to, all of a sudden you realize, there's a little bit of a burden lifted, am I right?
There is.
Okay, so if you get the word out about this play to those people, then I think you'll fill up the theater, and then I think it'll not only be a theater moment, but it'll be a life-changing moment for some of those people. I don't know if I'm out thinking this or not. Am I putting too much importance on a play?
No, I think that's a possibility. But I think the other thing that makes the play important to do is that it's something people need to understand better than they understand it. If you pick up the paper today or any day, almost always there's a little blurb somewhere about a child being abused in some way.
Right.
And often it's a sexual abuse that's occurring.
Almost always, yeah.
And yet people are in denial about that in general. If you go out out in the population and you say, you know,
Right.
who do you know who was sexually abused? Oh, no one.
And typically, if it's a male child that's been abused, it's brushed off as, well, that's something he's going to like anyway eventually. So, right?
It's much tougher for men, much tougher. I have worked with some young men who were sexually abused, and it is a more difficult topic for them to address and deal with because they're men, and the role of a man is different than it is for women.
Sure, yeah.
You also have people from the Ocala Police Department and the State Attorney's Office coming down for the talks afterwards. You are really able for everybody from all aspects of the crime to give their observations.
That's one of the things that Rusty's been.
Yeah, absolutely. We felt that as I started working on this, I thought, well, it's easy to get therapists and counselors, people who work with the person after the abuse has occurred.
Right.
But what happens in the criminal system and how is that perceived and what options are available, I thought was equally important for people to hear about. So if you're a family member and as in your case, someone tells you they were abused, what are your choices and what are your options to do with that information?
Sure.
Beyond just tell other family members.
Right, and in my case, I had to make a decision. Do I honor my sister's respect? Do I respect my sister's request to not tell our parents? Or my gut feeling was, this will help everybody if I tell. Not telling anybody keeps everything in the same place it's always been. And I think it took 2 years, but eventually it did solve even some of her problems.
Yeah, there's so many, and as Chris mentioned, there's so many layers to this kind of a situation that you're dealing with, and it's like an onion. It's like peeling back the layers to get down to the heart of the matter and what to do about it.
And by the way, I want to tell you this, that I don't mean to focus this on my sister, but she waited until the parents of our cousin died.
Right.
Just as you mentioned.
She was in her 40s. So
And she waited
yeah,
until they were gone.
Yeah.
She didn't want his parents to know.
Well, one of the other interesting aspects of the play, I mean, the play is really, I mean, you can see why it won the Pulitzer, because it's very fleshed out as far as all the different characters.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we think the audience might notice is that it also gives you some insight into things that the family members did that made her vulnerable, because there is a constant undermining of her confidence, talking about her appearance and dealing with her in such a way that she then is drawn to Peck, because Peck's the one that says that you're smart. A lot of the people in the family hadn't graduated from high school or things like that.
That's an
but
interesting.
you're smart. You
Yeah.
should go to college. You're attractive. You know, you're beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's an important point.
there even is a time when her mother says he's so good with them when they get to be that age. You know, because she gets angry and leaves the table
Wow.
when they pick on her. And then but you also get the impression from that and from another scene that he has abused other children too. So it's not just her. So it's when they get to be that age, Peck is just so good with them.
So profound, actually. No wonder it won a prize. I mean, that's another form of abuse that we as a society do to everybody, not just to children, but it affects children the worst. Is to say, oh, you're never going to amount to nothing. You know, what do you know? That kind of thing. Or we don't want to hear you seen but not heard. All that stuff. So.
So you said tickets?
Oh, we have tickets, right?
Yes, we
okay.
have
I know
tickets.
we've got a minute left.
Sorry.
No, I think this is an important play. So. Buy tickets, because we'll give some away later on. But
Okay, that's good.
I think this was an important thing to talk about. Mary, Chris, and Rusty, thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for letting us come.
Always
you.
blow me away with whether it's to make me laugh or to make me just joyful, or in this case to make me really realize what a contribution you make to this community, all of you. Thank you for doing that. The play starts tomorrow.
Yep.
For information, go to the box office website or box office physically.
OcalaCivicTheater.com.
OcalaCivicTheater.com. And the phone number?
352-236-2274.
And we'll repeat that. And I'm sure we'll be promoting this play, as well as there's another one in there. I know Joe wanted us to mention something about Blood. What is it?
Blood Brothers.
Blood Brothers.
It ran for almost 30 years in London.
Oh, wow.
So it's not as well known to the American population. It ran in New York for a little while, but it ran for 29 years in London.
Okay.
Gosh.
Thank you. We've got to run. This is WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The president giving his vision for the country, saying the state of our union is strong.
Surveys show